Welcome to another episode of Design Talk with your host, Dawn Christine.
So Glenn, thank you for joining us here.
Happy to be here.
It's good to see you.
I know,
again.
it's good to be here.
Well, can you believe how awesome this looks?
Isn't it?
Sure is.
What a transformation.
A big transformation. Yeah, we pulled up and we just went over and looked at the original house drawings and then the proposed, and then just to be in the space and see how it feels. So we were talking about the design process a little bit, and then we thought, it'd be great to bring you in and talk about the build process, because the build process and the design process and the client are all integrated into a fantastic project, and to have all three working together is really what makes the difference. So Glenn, I know as we were in this project, budgeting is always an issue. We've got the needs and the wants, and we've got the options, and then it's always the challenge of getting all those things together. And I know when we were under construction, we kind of decided we had a few more needs that we were trying to work in. And so when they reached out to you and said, "Hey Glenn, we really want to take in this part," how did you handle that so that to keep the process moving? But you were under construction, so it was very challenging.
That's right. Yeah, we've been doing this a long time, and I don't think there's ever been a project that didn't evolve.
Yep.
Right? They all evolve in some fashion. And clearly when, there was a little bit of scope change upstairs, other than schedule, it's always going to affect schedule. But I think the thing that probably was the biggest challenge is there was so much communications that needed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We had some vendors that were halfway through the project. We had some that hadn't started yet but had scope of work defined and quotes done. So it was just a lot of team interaction between Greg and Liz, and then you obviously with getting the drawings done and engineering, getting the permitting done.
Yeah.
So getting them on board was super important, but then all the other people in play. It was a lot of conversation.
And it was challenging too, because this project occurred over the 2020 pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a lot of issues with people going out of business and products not being available and having to shift the order. And so how did you help get us through that part of the process?
A lot of it was just, again, I'll circle back to the whole team thing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of times that Greg and Liz would have to interact with us and say, okay, we can't really do this, but here's what we could do. Or this product is going to cause a problem, but this is how we can. And then you jumped in a lot of times and helped with the design side of that. But I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of terms in this business that gets like a bad rap, and one of them is like scope creep. Unless I get it, okay, while you guys are here, let's go ahead and do this, and this as well, and that's fine. But I think the thing with the scope change is it's not a bad thing. It really just gives the homeowners a chance to make a realistic and clear decision on what they want, because sometimes even the best two-dimension doesn't really tell the picture until you actually get the space built, and you can walk in and kind of get a feel of, oh, I see what you were talking about.
Yeah, and absolutely, life happens too, and you see it coming together and you say, oh, I would really love for this to happen upstairs.
Yes. Well, COVID made a huge impact on that, right? I mean, suddenly we went from working, not at home to working at home, having other family members coming back to be at home, to spend, a lot of time, and we needed more functional spaces to be able to do that. And we had been living upstairs for a little bit, and we realized it was not comfortable and it was not inviting. So why would we want that for our guests and our family, right?
To go back to the scope and the change, one thing that both of you made a good point on, and that was we were able to walk around the space and spend some time looking at the space, and then give our ideas to Dawn or give our ideas to Glenn and Glenn's crew, which every one of them was very energetic. We felt like they were friends, and when we walked in, or when they did finally leave, we felt sadness. We wanted them out. We were a little bit sad. But
which is unusual.
but
Yeah.
you know, we got in and we were able to look at things, and then we would take those changes to you all, and you would give us both sides from a design standpoint, and then also from a build standpoint. It'll take this much longer. It's going to take X number of dollars. So the exchange of information was extremely helpful.
Oh my God.
And you know, in this process, I know what happens a lot of times with some builders. You know, the client will come to them and they'll say, make these changes. And sometimes they run off and make those changes. And I'll come back and be like, what happened?
Yeah.
And they destroyed the design concept. But working with Glenn and his team, you know, when you guys ever came to them with changes, or he would always come to me and say, hey, this is what we're considering. How can we solve this the best? Right. And so it's that partnership of client, architect, builder that makes the whole process turn into a result like this.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, running it by the builder before it ever got to you, they would shake their head and go, bad idea, guys. That's not going to fly.
Or I have to run this by Don.
Yeah, and that's when we were doing, oh, okay, maybe we're in trouble. Better hold back.
This is what we were thinking.
Generally, the response from Glenn was, you have a lane, right? You might want to stay in. No, actually, Glenn never is.
But it's, you know, you keep that open-minded. You keep that sense of, okay, we're all trying to get to that finished product, right? And it's better to go through the modifications, the changes, because the end result is love, right? And that's not an easy do, especially on a project that has this level. There are so many things that impact other things. It's just not you pick out one thing and say, this is what we want. It's like, okay, well, how does that
affect the next thing? Yeah, because as soon as we started getting into the second floor, well, then we're into roof lines and we're into structure and then we're into, okay, now the windows are shifting. You know, and we're putting all new windows, new headers. So now we got to make sure that all looks and works right. You know, you could just slap some windows in there and put some rooms in there, but you're not gonna end up with a cohesive design in the end. And so by thinking it through every step of the way, really helped the whole project come together. And I am delighted to be here and to see it and to talk with you guys and to share this moment with you. And I think we're going to get an award on this one. We're going to submit it. We're going to submit it. We're going to try.
Well, we love it. So, you know, it's an award in our eyes too. So if you're looking for satisfied people, then you've won that one already.
Well, I'm glad.
That's saying something.
That is.
You know, for where we started and all the things we were kidding before, there wasn't many places we didn't touch.
Yeah.
Right?
That is true.
And
that
come
is
together
true.
like this is awesome.
Well, and we showed Don some of the little extra added spaces that we found.
Did you really?
The little nooks that we could turn into, you know.
This was one of the phone calls. Hey, Glenn,
the granddaughter's playroom had a little hidden door and those types
there's
of
a
things.
space here. We think we could do something really cute with that.
And that little space is so cute, and I'm sure your grandkids will remember that space, you know?
Yeah.
Really will.
Yeah. I will too, as I crawl in and crawl out.
Your knees definitely will.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun.
And I went back to our wish list and I looked, and I really think we nailed almost everything on your wish list, other than that outdoor living area in the back, which maybe we'll come circle back around to.
We got to live in the space a little bit, understand a little bit more.
That's right.
But it's good. I mean, we got some bonus things on here that, you know, we figured out how to get a wine cellar within the house, which is great. We took care of that terrible transition into was the downstairs bedroom, because you almost had to like duck your head when you're walking through that, right? It was just so odd.
It was very awkward.
Yeah.
And one of the big architectural details too, and both of you guys had a big play in this, was the stairwell.
Oh yeah.
And then not only the stairwell being changed, but the railing, and the railing up here matches that, which was a nice architectural addition also. So.
And we had that weird, awkward space from the office loft to the family room over the garage. It was just odd. We'd walk up there and we'd go, it's just a slanted hallway on either side, and dark, and So you guys came up with some really cool features that make each of those rooms work, and we got a nice storage place to put all those holiday decorations and heritage items that someday we'll go through.
Which is so important because you think about the kitchen and all the space that you need, but one thing people do forget about is storage. Everybody has to have a place to put the stuff. Because you don't want it here.
One thing I like too is I can call Dawn and say, all right, Dawn, I'm standing in bedroom 3, I'm looking at this corner. She goes, yeah, I'm with you, go ahead. And I said, we gotta figure out this. She's okay. And then it was like within an hour, boom, I get something back. Okay, here's an idea. It's like, great. There's that interaction that Greg was alluding to. It's so important throughout the process. At design, you start with is wonderful, but there's always the
iterations.
Oh,
yep. Yep. And that's where like you were saying, the communication is super important, and to make sure the lines of communication are open and fluid, and everybody, we had that long email chain, reply all.
The book.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Sure, that's what it takes.
So, okay, I'm going to ask a hard question. Not really, but there are always pain points when something's under construction, when you're living through construction. If somebody's doing a renovation, they might not know how stressful it can be to have your house kind of torn apart and you have no kitchen. And tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, I think we stay longer than most people expect us to stay.
I was amazed
Yeah, we can hang in there.
They came back from a tent with mud in it in Africa, so they were a little used to it.
I think what really helped us as a couple, we made a decision early on to say, how important is it that I bring you into the decision on this part? Because there were parts of the house that I really didn't need to have my input on. It may muddle the waters because if Liz was spending a lot of time there, and vice versa. So we always had that discussion about, okay, the windows are here, how much do you want to be involved? And so that set boundaries and parameters for us, which then cut down on a lot of the angst and a lot of the anxiety, and gave us the opportunity to go in and pay more attention to the areas that we wanted individually. So that was a big plus.
And that's a great point, because what I see oftentimes happening is sometimes both parties have to make the decisions, and it takes them 10 times longer. So because you kind of said, this is my area and this is my area, you were able to move through the design process fairly smoothly and quickly, whereas some people are delayed a year, 2 years, because they're still debating about what they want. But I think that method that you guys used really worked.
Yeah, it cut down on a lot of things, because I really didn't need to have any input in on the size of her closet. And there was no way to hold that up.
We knew what battles we could pick.
That's right.
This is so true. I don't care about the wiring or what kind of windows should get put in. Just make sure that the windows are there. So, yeah, it's good. Insulation.
To have the trades people, the teams, like Greg alluded to, that were all into when they would come out, like with the staircase with it. They were helpful. They were just, okay, well, here's what I would recommend, and then we would get the chain of communications going again, and we'd circle in on usually the best solution. There might be multiple this or that, but at the end of the day, I think the right decisions got made.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of the tradesmen, and I would say almost craftsmen, artists, right, that came in, like our banister and stairway, I think that's a piece of art. I think he did a wonderful job. I think the cabinetry subcontractor, I think they did a great job on, the functionality of our cabinets and helping us think through them. So it makes a big difference. I always would tell Glenn, I just want people that really take pride in their work.
It makes a big difference.
And it shows.
It does.
Right?
Yeah, you can tell when someone's really into what they're doing, and the other people are just there, making a day out of it. There's a big difference in the quality of the result.
Yeah, and that usually falls on your shoulder, making sure you have the right subs lined up. That's why I like to refer builders that I've worked with before, because we have the working relationship, and it makes it so much easier for you guys.
We know how to communicate.
We did have some challenges, and I think part of this was through COVID. There was a lot of things that happened. You know, companies changed hands. So we had two major vendors that, you know, they sold, they said enough. And so now we had purchases with the old vendor, and then we have a new vendor. And now you have to manage that.
It's difficult, right? Because in this, at that period, there was a lot of transition. The COVID still had impacts on product, and it was mostly the specialty things, but those are the more intricate things, and that's what makes it difficult. There just wasn't a plan B available on some things. It's like, this is what you have, and we just have to kind of be patient and work through those things. But yeah, to Liz's point, there were a couple of those that, it's always say Murphy's going to show up. It's not if, it's when. And the difference is when it does happen is how we all work together to get through that.
Exactly, and that's what I love about you and your team is you're solutions oriented, which is how I am with my team. There's never a problem, there's always a solution. And if we can focus on what the solution is and less on what the problem is, oftentimes your problems can become your happy accidents. Like this.
Exactly. That's perfect. That's a perfect example. I told Dawn, she's like, interesting. And I said, yeah, that was actually an accident that the painter stained the top, and we went, let's just go with it. And we like it. It's great.
But growing up, my father would tell me, he would say, how you handle your failures determines your successes.
Absolutely spot on.
And so the same thing in a project, you're always going to have obstacles, you're always going to have difficulties, but it's a matter of how you tackle those. Do you look at them as opportunities or as opposition? And if you look at them as opposition, they're going to bring you down. If you look at them as opportunities, it's going to make it better. And so I think that's the best way to handle the obstacles, and I think we did that well as a team.
I love the way Greg and Liz would communicate. The worst thing is to have a client that doesn't express something, even if it's something that doesn't turn out the way that they wanted.
Yes.
It's like, okay, I hear you. So to your point, what can we do to modify?
Because at the end of the day, you want the client to be
That's
happy.
just their home,
And if they don't tell you they're not happy, you don't know how to fix it.
It's true.
Yeah, 3 months of renovation and we're gone.
This isn't HGTV, guys. This is real TV. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. How long did the build process take from beginning to end?
It was a year, wasn't
Longer than that.
it? Yeah.
COVID, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
with COVID.
Yeah,
So I think
that's
we did our first demo. There was no turning back in February
That's right.
2021. And we got our final and
Hang on. Is that something positive we want to say about how long it took?
But people are always asking that. And they
Okay.
have unrealistic
Expectations.
ideas.
So you really want us to
Oh,
tell?
the HGTV
Yeah.
is problematic.
We fight with HGTV because they set people up for failure.
Okay.
'Cause
I
they-
just didn't know if
No,
it,
it's
if-
okay. I'd rather be realistic.
Yeah,
than
me
not.
too.
Okay.
Yeah,
It is okay.
we're not HGTV, we're real TV.
All right, go back to it, Liz.
Okay.
all right. So I was going to
6
say
months.
6 months. It was not 6 months. So our final was December
Was it?
2023.
Okay.
But, we did the one phase, then we probably had a 3-4 month
Probably at
kindly,
least a 3.5 months.
right? Kind of
transition.
reset to really get coordinated on the upstairs.
Right, so that extra scope
Made it, yeah.
delayed the project significantly.
Right. And I think, just stepping back, I think we still probably would have done it the same way. Right? I think we needed to see what the cost implications were going to be for the downstairs. We thought the upstairs was not that big a deal until we actually had to live in it. And then
This doesn't look right.
I've bumped my head on this wall like 3 times in the last week, right?
I think a lot of it came down to you're going to live in this house for another 20, 30 years possibly. Do you want it done right?
Get it done right.
And that once again brought in the architecture, brought in the builder.
Yeah.
Even if it took a little bit longer, it was
was
well
worth
worth it, and it was well thought out. And anytime you rush something, there's going to be a lot of mistakes and regrets. And we walk in every day and we say, we're glad, even though it took a little longer, we held it up. A lot of people don't want to say that because they always think it's the builder or the architect, but we held it up and we wanted to make other changes. So you just have to be able to adjust the schedule, and if you want to rush it through, that's your option, but.
And we did have a lot of specialty items, right?
Yeah, but you
And
know,
so-
the construction fatigue is just part of the game, and you know, there's some things that we have a lot of times where we do things in phases. We see that a lot, budgetary drive, and, you know, okay, we're going to have to phase this out, but that just makes it difficult, right? To like Greg and Liz's point, you know, we kind of went through phases all in one process, where it wasn't phase one, take a breather and come back in phase two. That's at times even more difficult than what you guys are alluding
Yeah,
to.
and usually it costs more when you have to break it into phases because you got to bring the subs back out, the electrician, the plumber, the sheetrock. So when you combine it all together, you do see some cost savings with that. But you know, people that watch HGTV sometimes can get the wrong idea that things happen. Oh, ta-da, it's done. No, there's a lot of time and legwork that goes into pulling everything together. And to your point, Greg, if you rush it, it's like stepping into a bad marriage really quickly. You don't ever say I do right away. No, you take your time. Because if you rush into it, it's usually a disaster. And the same thing with design and construction. You got to take your time and go the proper steps to arrive at a good solution because it's complicated. It seemed like a simple solution, and the broad strokes, the initial broad strokes were simple, but getting all those broad strokes to be integrated all the way throughout the space, the structure, the roof lines, there was a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't really make that call until you're at a certain point in the project. You know, to have that clarity of, oh, I see, you know, maybe it is that we do this way, and you make that evolving change midstream.
And you know, you think about your life, like Greg was saying, you know, if we're gonna be here, we want it to be what we want it to be, and we're willing to make whatever sacrifices we have to make to get this.
Right.
And you don't have to go through the construction process twice.
Yeah.
Which, you know, they're already demoing everything. Things are already torn up. It's so much easier to just get it done at the same time.
Sure. And not duplicate costs is huge.
Yes.
You know, rework is kind of the, you know, when I talk about the scope creep, that's the only downside of that is if you run into rework. So fortunately, we were at a level when Greg and Liz wanted to do that adaptation, that we weren't really tearing things apart that we had just built.
Right.
We were just adding to.
Right.
So the timing was critical.
Yeah, the timing was critical, and they hit it right at the right time to do it. So.
That was lucky. I just lucky all around. Like I had a thought this time. I'm in.
Well, I think we gave everybody a good synopsis of what a project feels like to go through from beginning to end, and then what the end results can be, kind of some of the stumbling blocks that you hit, the troubles, the difficulties, the challenges, but then at the end of the day, when it's all done, do you remember any of the troubles, or do you just enjoy the room and the house and coming home each day?
I think I'll always still remember cleaning up sheetrock dust because it just seems to never go away. But that's probably, if anyone says they're starting construction, I was like, oh, sheetrock dust.
We were doing that 50 years ago. We're doing that today.
I know.
Don't understand it.
It's like someone ought to come up with some patent idea.
I think we did. I think I would come home, we'd have a glass of wine, we'd go sit on our beautiful front porch
And relax.
and sheetrock dust
It will
went away.
eventually go away. It will eventually go away.
Resiliency, right?
Resiliency. Yeah, well, to get all those beautifully smooth sheetrock walls and transitions.
Yeah.
And it's so fine. So it does. That is true. That is a good thing for people to be aware of, that you don't necessarily think about. You know, you think about remodeling, you're thinking about moving walls, you're not thinking about sheetrock dust.
Yeah.
They don't show that on the TV.
They certainly
programs.
don't.
No, it's always clean, right? They show it all, like from framing to sheetrock to paint. There's no sheetrock dust.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you guys for having us.
Oh,
and
this was
for giving us a tour of your beautiful home and to come
was
back
good,
and
right?
talk about it.
It was good.
Yeah, Greg, always a pleasure.
You bet.
Right, it was
It
good.
was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn,
And thanks, partner.
great job. You and your team.